Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fresh from the Studio. Today we have Erika Alonso, Rebecca Bennett, and Samantha Melvin presenting. Each artist will have 10 minutes to share upcoming projects, recent projects, works in progress. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat. At the end of the three presentations, we'll have time for questions and comments. Starting off today is going to be Rebecca Bennett.
Hi, everybody. Should I make that? How are you? I am Rebecca Bennett. I'm coming to you from my home studio in Austin, Texas. I'm an oil painter and a mixed media artist. Right now, I'm getting ready for a couple of shows. I've got the other art fair coming up in May, and I'll be exhibiting my oil paintings. And then this summer, I'm going to do a show at Hanger Art Studios, and that's going to be fun too. And I'm going to be showing a different body of work. So my oil paintings are typically minimal abstract oil paintings where I'm exploring line and color and light. Recently, I did a show with three other people, Leslie Kell and Elena Lipkowski were two of the people. And we did a show called Thin Space, Transcending the Ordinary. So thin space is that space where heaven meets earth. And so what I'd like to do is share a little slideshow I have where I'm going to show you a couple of my paintings from that show and then go through some of my mixed media work. So here we go. I'm going to start sharing my screen with y'all. Here we go. I think I'm doing it. Can you see it? No? Go ahead. There we go. Okay. From the beginning. Okay, so this is the first piece I wanted to talk about that was in the Thin Space show. This is a good example, I think, of some of the work I like to do where I'm using light and color and line. I often use a sharp horizontal line in my work. The show was about metaphysical space. And so in this particular piece, I wanted to use the same color family to create a very calm, peaceful, ethereal piece of work. I like that the light is emanating from the painting. So that is just one example of the kind of work I do. And then another piece that was in the show that I wanted to talk about was transcendence. In this piece, I'm using complementary colors instead of colors in the same family so that I could bring a little more energy to it. I like that the perspective was a little ambiguous. Um, Again, I'm putting lines in. Perhaps this is a reflection line. And again, my work is all about minimal abstract landscape. At least my oil paintings are. So what's behind me and what I've shown you are pretty good examples of what I do mostly. But then when I'm not painting, I like to use these images of my paintings to create new work. And I call that my meta collection because it's artwork from artwork. So these next slides, I'm going to take you through some of that collection. Here we are with Blooming Optimism. I started this collection in 2021 after the pandemic. So I was feeling very joyful and happy. And each of these circles is a painting that I've photoshopped and printed and collaged onto, this is on canvas with paper. I also added some wood elements and string. And besides the loading, I've also got the sideways movement, which I really enjoy. I also wanted to keep a lot of negative space here because, like I said, I was kind of thinking about the pandemic and the ending of the pandemic. And besides the joyfulness of that, these circles kind of represent life, flowers, Some people thought they looked like diatoms, which are single-celled algae. I thought that was kind of fun. But the negative space allows for breathing room, and I thought that was really so. Anyway, these just bring me a lot of joy. And then this piece over here is the same idea, but it's on paper, and I'm using tape instead of the wood elements to play with the movement. So that's a Blooming Optimism series. And then I've got this is kind of an overview of some other things I do with my painting, with my images on my paintings. So these pieces are called sprouts. I use just sliced up pieces of my paintings and collage them onto the wood and wrap the string around. I'm playing here with color on color. The shape of this piece is kind of reminiscent of a musical instrument, maybe. So that's why these are called color rhythm. And then besides that, I think the way the colors are laid out is a little bit lyrical and dancing, kind of fun. And then this is taking those flat images and bringing them to the 3D. So the flat images, the circle flat images, are then made into cones and adhered onto a wood surface. And again, each of these is a painting or some sort of artwork that I've done in the past. And it's adhered onto wood. And again, I like to leave a lot of negative space around the pieces. These find themselves a lot in, like hospital settings or something where they need joyful, happy, energetic pieces. So they're a lot of fun to do. And then in 2020, I did a show at the Georgetown Art Center. It was a solo show called The Meta Garden. So I was exploring a lot of different ways to use my painting images as well. And this was another itineration. This is folded paper and string again. I like to use string in all of these bits for it. So this was called Sunlit Garden. It was a very abstracted garden. And then recently, this is my latest idea. I've been playing with this. Did this maybe a month ago, and instead of the shapes being circular, they're like this before I spin them, and with Photoshop, making them into circles. And I just really love these linear shapes. So I wanted to get those out of my head and onto paper and figure out a way to use them. And I thought this was a successful successful play. I like the way these colors look like they're bleeding into each other. I like, I'm still playing with color over color. These are red and these strings are blue. And then down here, you can see that I've added some circles. Still can't get away from circles. To the pieces, they're washers, and I can see myself painting them or using different colors or using different sizes and shapes. I mean, there's so much that can be done with this. And, this top piece and this bottom piece, the pieces are laid out different. And so the bleeding happens from the centerpiece out. And I just thought that was really exciting too. So that's what I most recently have been playing with. My paintings are work that I do all the time, but I haven't done a lot of experimentation with them. Just the color play is what I do with those mostly. So then finally, I have here a picture of my studio at Canopy. So every first Saturday we have open studios, and people are welcome to come. And so what I have here is just everything that I do. So I've got the paintings and the Meta Bloom series and other series, and I like to put in experimental work. And it's so fun to hear people give you feedback when they're visiting the studio. So that's me. Thank you. I appreciate the time, and I will stop sharing this. Thank you, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, we have Erika Alonso.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm going to try and share my screen now. See if this works. How is that?
Looks
Good.
Okay. Awesome. So maybe I should start from the beginning. That would help. Hi, everybody. My name's Erika Alonso. I'm an artist in Houston, Texas, and I'm currently at the airport, which I'll explain a little bit later on. But if there's like a lot of noise, I apologize. Feel free to mute me. So the last time that I did a Fresh from the Studio event was in March of 2021, which is like, I was so nervous. I can't even tell you how, I mean, I'm still nervous, but I was incredibly nervous. And I was just thinking in preparing for this talk, like how far I've come as an artist. And so I kind of wanted to share a little bit of my journey. So these are some of the pieces that were included in the first Fresh from the Studio event. Shortly after that, in 2021, I had like an incredibly productive, I mean, really all year, spring and summer, especially. I was in a group show at Holt's Fine Art. It was a Texas Emerging show, and it went very, very well. I also was selected to auction off a couple paintings at the Houston Arts Alliance Summer Scala. And then in November of 21, I had my very first solo show, which was just like being at the right time, right place at the right time. They had an opening. They're like, do you have a body of work? Yeah, I do. Let's do it. So within like 3 weeks, I had a solo show up, and that was a wonderful way to end the year. So then moving into 2022, which was last year. Last year, I think could be summed up with this exhibition that I had in December. I started working on it in May. It's called Landscape. And so it's an oral history recording of 3 elderly immigrant women who came from Latin America to the United States when they were younger. And I recorded our conversations to learn more about their childhood, the memories that they have of their homelands, as well as the trek of coming to the United States and what that was like. So this is a picture from the exhibition. This is one of the larger sort of like compilation pieces. So it's not related to any one specific story or memory that one of the ladies told me, but more just like an overall compilation of the stories. So this happened in December and it was really incredible. It was the first time I put together such a huge project. I was lucky enough to get a supporting artists and creative individuals grant from the city of Houston, which really was the reason I was able to dedicate my time to work on this project. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And let's see. And then another big thing last year, big accomplishment, was I was in a museum show for the first time. I had a few pieces at the Art Museum of Southeast Texas, the Contemporary Texas Women Artists Abstraction Here and Now show. So this is a picture of a couple of the pieces on the wall. And then I think that the one to the right is Emma Balder, and that might be a sculpture by Melinda Lesazinski. Anyways, incredible artists to like be shown with. And I went to the show like the weekend before it closed, and it was a dream. I was so happy. And then this happened. Like a couple of days later, somebody there was a fire in one of the studios in the building where my studio's at, and it caused extensive smoke damage throughout all the studios. Essentially, like we all kind of lost a lot of stuff, and it was really sad. Yeah, so I don't know much else to say about that other than that it's been good to have like a community of artists, and the city also was very supportive in helping set up a fundraiser. Some artists lost like everything, like paint melted, like the oil paint melted off of the canvases. And then other artists like me, when we're fortunate, we just have a bunch of smoke covered things that can be cleaned, but you'd be surprised how much time and money it costs to clean smoke off of things. So this was December. January, I had no studio. So I was stuck at home and I just worked on ink drawings. And so that was, I think I have like maybe 6 or 7, like just notebooks full of my little doodles. By February, I was able to get into my new studio, or at least temporarily new. Yeah. As you can see, I got my friend to show up with a drone to take like an overview shot, which is really cool. It's pretty empty, especially I wish I had a photo of my previous studio because it was so full. So everything is in storage, waiting to be cleaned or tossed. And I was so excited. Like as soon as I got back into the studio, I just felt so much better. It's like I was real dark for a little while, and then it was better. It's like it didn't happen as long as I had that studio. So that was February. I also had a little pop-up show at Foltz that showed some of my works on paper that survived. Then so that was another little silver lining of trying to find positive things to come out of that tragedy. And then last month, I went to West Texas, and that is one of the sunsets. Every single night, the sunset was incredible. It was really inspiring. I don't know if any of y'all have gone to West Texas. There's like nobody, there was no one there. It was very peaceful and quiet, and I very much like watched the sunsets and painted and watched the birds. So it was great. I was there for a little less than 2 weeks, and then I came back to where I am now, which is at the airport. I was asked to be the artist in residence at the Bush Intercontinental Airport. It's the Houston airport system that sort of like hosts it. So there's one artist downtown at the downtown airport, and then there's one up here, North Houston, and that's me. And so I'll be here for 3 months during the weekdays, and they've given me like a little studio space, a stipend for supplies, travel and stuff. And oh yeah, I'm painting at the airport. So I went from like quiet nothing and then now I'm here with a whole lot of people, a whole lot of noise. It's completely different than what I'm used to, which is working quietly alone in my studio. And now I've got people watching me, and I'm talking while painting. And it's actually been like a really exciting experience. I figure by the end of this residency, I will be a social butterfly. And yeah, it's a challenge. It's something that I was afraid to do, but that's why I did it, because I feel like that's how you grow as an artist. And so here I'm working on smaller pieces, and working on some smaller pieces on wood panels. And then I wish I had, let me see if I could show you. I've got some little watercolors here that I've been working on. These are this is from West Texas. I thought it was kind of cute. Hard to see the colors. But yeah, so I've been working on works on paper more, focusing on watercolor, and then here working in smaller wood panel paintings in acrylic. I hope I didn't take too long, but that's what's been going on with me. Thank you for letting me share my story, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. Next up, we have Samantha Melvin.
Fantastic. Thank you, Diane and Women in Their Work, for hosting us. This is very exciting. I am actually sharing from Flatbed Press in Austin, which is where I am a community press member, and I'm able to work here as well as in my home studio. So that works really nicely. I can work on larger pieces, larger monotypes, and then smaller pieces, and then also my paintings at home. So I'm going to do pretty much a deep dive into the printmaking process that I've really explored deeply, especially with flatbed and a wonderful artist residency workshop that I did last summer. I'm also working towards my MFA in painting at Savannah College of Art and Design. And my thesis exhibition is actually next week, which is very exciting. You're all invited. One of the things that is so important to me actually is the botanical and the architectural and the merging of that in my compositions. I'm really interested in nature, and my work explores the coexistence of humans and nature, and I really love pattern and I love color. And what happens then when you merge all of those together, when they come together like that in a composition, there's a wonderful play of light. And that is actually what I'm seeking. And I think it's a way of exploring different sanctuaries and spaces that really nurture us. And many of us find that in the garden. We find it in the studio for sure through our work, but I think that nature aspect is so essential for every human. So this is one of the early works that really launched this body of work that I'm sharing with my thesis and then here, which will also be kind of a continuing exploration, I feel, for my work going forward. This is actually a monotype, so it's using stencils to create these different shapes on the composition, and it's a work on paper. I'm using Cranfield's Calico Safe Wash inks and a lot of transparent base. And it can be 5 layers to 12 layers, depending on how many different aspects I want to bring into the composition. I'll be talking about the pieces behind me in a little bit. This particular work is 11 by 14. So I range in size and also the material or the medium on which I work. And I put this photograph in. This is actually from by our driveway. And it's this essential component of my work where we really take time to look at nature and all of the qualities that are within a space. And it doesn't matter how small or how large your backyard is, but there are some really beautiful qualities in those spaces. And I want also to look right down at the base of these plants, because there are generations of plants in the soil, and they nurture what comes afterwards. And I think that whole dynamic is really interesting, and I try to investigate that in my work. And of course, color and pattern are essential, and I give a nod to the pattern and decoration movement for just really integrating all of these aspects into art. So this particular piece is called Archways in the Garden, and you're going to see just this repeating component of the botanical and the architectural. And what I really like to emphasize actually is that component of the repetition. I'm investigating the work of Gilles Deleuze. It's called Difference in Repetition. And he was a French philosopher. And his work talks about the distinct qualities of individual objects, but then that idea of the repetition. But what also happens, and it applies to complexity theory too, so it's all of these wonderful thoughts to investigate further. The idea of one single change can create a different outcome. And so when we play with pattern and we play with translucent layers in a printmaking process like this, in monotype, there are so many possibilities and so many variations that can occur. It's the butterfly effect. And I love that. I love that the energy that comes from that, the serendipitous outcomes. I don't plan my work in advance. I really play with color. I play with pattern, and then I keep going, or sometimes I stop. And sometimes, you know, there's that whole quality of, did you go too far? But I think that's a really fun element of our process as artists. These pieces all show the same dynamic of the botanical with the layers. And then this is a small glimpse into the very small studio that I have at home that kind of rotates between a printmaking space for small work, or it may have the easel for larger work. And all of these components are just wonderful ways of putting together all these colors and variations. So then I decided I needed to go bigger. And so here I have a 30 by 22-inch plate. It's actually plexiglass. It looks like copper, but it's actually been inked. And then you do the overlay of the stencils, and you're basically playing with the positive and negative. This particular piece is on exhibit currently at the San Antonio Art League Museum. It's called Strength of Shade Contends with Strength of Light. And that particular title actually comes from a wonderful poem from 1734 by Alexander Pope, who was a poet, a writer, but also a gardener, and really speaks to this play of light and the variations that we see in a composition, whether it's the garden or a two-dimensional work. Here is another piece, and you can see the variations in the natural elements. These are all different plants actually from my backyard. There's a lime tree. There are all types of different oaks and wild brush. A lot of natural plants from the Central Texas region actually show up in my work. And some of them, you know, it's hard to identify them. You really have to walk around with the identifying app to know exactly what they are. But one of the things that really speaks to me is the passion vine, Passiflora. I had shown that particular cutout in an earlier slide, and she appears here and is really just a symbol of persistence in the garden. I was an art teacher, elementary art teacher, and I had planted this Passiflora in the back space by the playground, which is a hazard in and of itself, at school. And it kept getting cut by the team that would cut the lawn, and but it kept showing up. And then when I left the classroom, one of the maintenance guys actually did a cutting for me and gave it to me so that I could plant it in my garden. And so it shows up year after year, and it's just one of those wonderful natural plants that just is just a wonderful sign of resilience. So here we have another piece, Transient Journey. And this particular work is called A Waving Glow, Her Bloomy Beds Display, which I just love the title. It's from the poem by Alexander Pope again. And this particular work is at Flatbed Gallery currently until June with 2 more works. And then, of course, we're pushed to go larger, right? Like we have this notion, okay, now we've mastered this particular size. When you're working in painting, it might be your 48 by 48, or you could go 60 by 48 and just keep pushing that size. Well, I decided I had to go larger with the plexiglass and with these panels. So these panels that are actually behind me, these are the steps in progress. The plate has been inked, and then I lay the stencils down. And then you can see it's actually mulberry paper, so it's very lightweight. It actually goes pretty transparent when it is inked. And I've actually inked both sides, and it has a wonderful quality of translucency, which I'm really aiming for, and the play of light, but also the play of color. And these are going to be on exhibit next week at Cloud Tree for my exhibition. And they'll be suspended in the middle of the space. So you can imagine how we'll be able to walk around these pieces. And it's actually called transient phenomena, which ties in with complexity theory and the whole idea that humans are just a blip on the history of the universe and the history of the earth. And we are just passing through, but nature stays and just keeps growing. So it's really a celebration of nature. And here's a close-up so that you can see the wonderful textural quality of the paper and that whole idea of the spaces in between that I'm investigating. And then, of course, painting. So this is a work in progress. This is at home. I actually took over the hallway and took the art down so that I could actually hang this. It's and work on it. It's 118 inches by 55. It's massive. It's the biggest I've ever done. It's a work on raw canvas, and it is so much fun, but it really is a challenge in changing that scale and really pushing the use of that space. And I'm not trying to make it look like my monotypes, but it's definitely a play of pattern and color. Here's another view. There are more layers to come, so you're gonna have to come see it next week. And then this is an imprint series where I actually did rubbings, and actually there were rubbings in the other piece. I did the rubbings from tree stumps, carved wood, decayed wood on our property, really demonstrating the passage of time. And I used aquarelle for that, and then I painted it with water, and of course it becomes that watercolor. Beautiful effect. So there are 4 of this in this series, and I superimposed the patterns and different colors, really playing on the layers that we have all around us if we take time to look. And here we are. So this is the show card for next week. And I'm very excited about that. It opens on Thursday, May 4th, and I'll be giving an artist talk on Sunday at 3. And it's short and sweet, but then I'll be completing my MFA. And then I look forward to more shows. I have a show coming up at Flatbed from our trip to Italy. Actually, it's out of La Ramita, and that opens June 10th. And I have a show with a good friend, Ginny Masserang, scheduled at Georgetown Art Center for November of 2024. So good things to come. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys all for sharing with us. And now I would like to set aside some time to open up for questions for our artists. Feel free to type it in the chat if you're a little shy, or you can ask it yourself directly too. And I've also put the artists' Instagrams and websites in the chat as well for reference.
Well, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I've really enjoyed this. You all did a great job. And I was, Erika, I was like, is she in an airport? What is all that? I couldn't figure that out. So thanks for mentioning that, because that would have been a big puzzle for me. But anyway, I just love your work.
Thank you very much.
Best wishes
Thanks,
for everything. I hope to get by and to see your work very soon.
Oh, Mila has a question for Erika, actually. The airport residency looks fantastic and totally challenging. Will there be an exhibition as the final of your airport residency?
Is this super loud?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me okay? Yes, so it is incredibly challenging, but I am also enjoying it. I think that I'm not sure if a full show is going to come out of it, but I've kind of been playing around with this idea of baggage. You know, people, it's really interesting. People, you're kind of like the resident therapist too. I mean, I think it's great. People come in and they're like, you know, some of them are very vulnerable where they're going, you know, they're visiting ill, you know, relatives, or, you know, some guy was asking me if he should start his own business. It's like, I don't think I'm qualified to give you that advice. But anyways, so, you know, there's these, I was thinking about this idea of, yeah, like people have their baggage and then they have like their baggage.
It's such a good
And
idea.
yeah, something like that. So yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Nice. And a question for Samantha from Paige. What is the origin of that geometric web network shape that recurs in your work? Is it natural or is it man-made?
Okay, so I actually did cut that. And it references the interconnected web that we're all a part of, and it is geometric. And so there's that element of the architectural, the designed, and that imprint that we have on our environment, but it also echoes kind of that natural web that happens if you look at trees, you look up at trees and you see that connected web, or you pull up a weed and you see that connected web of all the roots, and you may pull up other weeds too, and they're all interconnected. And I think that is actually what it references. And in some of the pieces, it's more visible, and others, it's much more subtle. I hope that answered that question.
Very nice. Well, that kind of leads into a question I had. Oh, Rebecca, nice. From Karen, a question from Karen. Rebecca,
Hi, Karen.
nice. Rebecca, I like the direction of your latest pieces. Have you considered bringing these images to the scale of your larger paintings?
Yes, to answer it shortly. Are you talking about the circle, the printed images, or are you talking about
The long vertical
Oh.
ones that have that bleeding that pulls off to the side into the wood? It's
Oh,
really compelling.
yes,
Beautiful.
yes. They're just brand new, Karen. So like I'm still exploring that, but yes, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah.
You know, I always like the
so-
big, Rebecca. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be very exciting large, but I'm just playing. So they're
Yeah.
only 24 inches right now. So
they're beautiful. It's exciting to
good
see.
idea. Thank you.
It's exciting to see where your play is taking you and giving yourself space to play that way. It's nice.
Thanks. Thank you, Karen.
Nice. Good question. I also had a question for the three artists as well, kind of about how your works are all sort of site responsive. I thought it was interesting. I mean, Erika, you're in the airport, and then Rebecca, I think you mentioned you had some work installed in hospitals, like the circular ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then Samantha,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, those are fantastic. And Samantha, your works, which are sort of responding to nature in a way, and I was wondering how installing in these sites have changed your practice going forward, or how these have sort of influenced sort of your themes, as well as the response to the people around you, like the people in the airport, the people in the hospitals, and then just with nature, maybe like hikers or other wildlife you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Do
you want to
that's a
take it,
good
Rebecca?
question. Just for in my experience, the work is done and then they're in the hospital, right? So the only thing that I need to think about is longevity of the pieces, you know, how long they will last and the sunlight, and then it's mostly about logistics and like making sure they're covered, like in hospitals they have to be covered so they could be wiped, and so it's more about that for me, you know, since I'm not in the hospital, I'm just creating the art for the hospital, so it's more about logistics and process. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say so much is depending on sort of the resources that you have. and you work with the stuff that you've got. And so for me at the airport, like I said, I'm working smaller, and I think I'm also trying to make stuff that's a little less dark, because I think there's like a little element of darkness to my work, and so I'm trying to make it a little more like family friendly. But the kids love it, and I mean, the kids come up and they're just in awe. Some of them wanted to take a photo with me. It was great. So I don't know if it's gonna necessarily change the content, which is just generally the content of my art is my life and sort of like different things that I'm thinking about at the time, all put together. So in that way, yes, it will inform the art, but yeah, it's more about the logistics.
Yes, and it's interesting. I think my work is informed by place, and I think long term, one of the things that I think will be really exciting is when I travel, how I'll be able to really look at at nature and the plants that are in that particular region. And it's diverse across the United States, but then when we think about internationally, around the globe, if I have those opportunities, how that will inform the work, and how there will be elements that are similar, but we also know that there are architectural elements that are different depending on the region, and what is celebrated depending on just where it is in the world. And so I think those qualities will definitely inform. One of the things that was exciting for me in gearing up for the solo show is the whole idea of how I can use the space. And it's something that we all have to think about. But using the space where, in this case, for example, where I can install it in the middle of the room and it becomes part of an active performance, which is the whole idea behind transient phenomena, because people are going to be passing through this space, and yet I don't have figures in the work. I'm not a figurative painter. I've played around with that. It's not something I'm interested in right now. But instead, I think the idea of passing through as we do, we all have different migrations. We've all experienced moves of different types. And all of that is part of my personal history as well. And I think that notion of being in a place for a temporary time is very much part of my own kind of experience. And then I put that into the work. So there's definitely that component of experience, but then we also have to think, how are we going to share this? And I think that is really exciting when we're able to translate it, hopefully, right? Hopefully it's going to communicate really well, and give and share that notion of transient phenomena. It was a good question.
Thank you. All wonderful answers. And then I also want to give time for M. Young. You had some comments for the artists as well.
Yes, I've thoroughly enjoyed your presentations. Thank you so much. Rebecca, I was fascinated by this idea of thin space where heaven meets earth.
Yes.
I've never really heard that term before, but I love to use the divine in my work. Just this idea that, we all have this divine spark inside of us that we're created with. And I love the idea of using the thin space in with my Madonnas. So anyway, thank you for that. And I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, that's exciting. I wish I could. So Leslie Kell is the one that came up with the idea of thin space, and then she presented it to the other two of us. She's also an art diva, and so you could go down a rabbit hole with her sometime if you know her. Anyway, it was a great idea, and I thought that my work was particularly lent to that, because I'm always painting these wide open spaces where I think, earth meets sky and spiritual places. So,
and her name is
great, Leslie Kell. Yes, and she's also part of, she's a member of Women in Their Work too.
Okay. Okay,
So
great.
look her up, and yeah, she would love to talk to you more about it. Yeah.
Thank you. And Erika, I love your work, these paintings that to me, they represent Chagall. You know, as soon as I saw them, it was just, I don't see those as being dark at all. No, they're very light and very spiritual. I'm sorry about the loss of your studio and the fire. I know it was terrifically, it was crazy sad. And I have a dear friend, Holly Nowak, who was also affected. And she's actually going to go to Italy with me in 2 weeks, and we're going to be co-teaching a class there. So I offered her that opportunity so that to help her recover from that loss, because she did lose everything in her studio. Anyway, I also wanted to say I love this baggage idea. It's amazing. Yeah, you need to go with that. And I love your youthful enthusiasm. You know, you've just really gone places in these 3 years. I mean, you've done a tremendous amount, and it's taken a lot of bravery and vulnerability to put yourself out there like that. So bravo, bravo.
Thank you so much. Thanks. And yeah, I'm so glad to hear that Holly's getting to go to Europe, because yeah, Holly had a really hard time. Holly was right next to the studio that blew up. So yeah, it was very sad. But thank you so much for the kind words.
And then Samantha has a very dear place in my heart, because we met at La Romita in Italy in September when we did a printmaking workshop. And I have so enjoyed watching your process. It's been absolutely amazing. And this exhibit that you're going to be doing, and watching how you prepare for it at this phenomenal rate, and this creativity that is just exploding. And to see the way you title and work with this deep intuitive passion, and the way you're titling these with this poet or more than one poet's work, it's just so awesome. So anyway, thank you so much. I really enjoyed everybody's presentations. It was very meaningful to me.
Thank you very much.
Nice. Very
What a
wonderful
pleasure. Thank you.
comments. Thank you so much. And again, there's going to be Samantha's MFA as well as her open show, or her show opening at Cloud Tree. And then Rebecca will be having open studios for Saturday of the month coming up next month. And then Erika, we're looking forward to seeing what comes of this airport residency. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this wonderful session of Fresh from the Studio. We hope to see you next month for our next edition as well, and have a wonderful rest of y'all's day.
It's wonderful.
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank
See y'all
you.
later.